Well, hello everyone, and welcome to, I think this is my first TikTok video. I really appreciate everyone being here and going through with me as we discuss one of the new cameras that the truck companies are going to get, and maybe eventually each of the engine companies will get as well. And what I'm talking about is the SEEK FirePRO X thermal imaging camera, hence the play on words. The SEEK FirePRO X is an updated version. Several of you across the department have seen. I have the SEEK FirePRO that I purchased after the Miller Street fire. And one of the things or the takeaways that I had from that fire was that when I found myself in the basement, if I'd had a thermal imaging camera, it might have gone a little bit better for me in that I could have been able to see around the room and what was going on, found the steps that were not that far behind me. But I tried multiple different things after getting back before I made the purchase of the SEEK FirePRO. I tried the Scott Insight or Scott Foresight, the one that goes onto our SCBA masks. I think Driver Engineer Rojas has one of those. If you want to look into that, it's just expensive, and for me, wasn't something that I could easily store away when I didn't want to use it. That could be moved around from person to person. That if somebody needed to borrow, could have. And then so I tried something that was a little bit more portable. I also tried personally a FLIR brand that had a handle, which was nice that it had a handle, but it was still yay big, wouldn't necessarily fit into a pocket, and its screen resolution was pretty bad. Even though the screen was a little bit bigger, the resolution wasn't nearly as good as with the SEEK. And then a smaller version of our Bollard that I couldn't tell was any smaller. It required external batteries and a lot of other things that made it very similar to the current thermal imaging cameras that are on the engine and truck companies at this time. And so about a year ago, or a little more than a year ago, I purchased the SEEK, and I have liked it personally moving forward. Talked to the truck companies thinking that the senior firefighter position on the truck company would benefit from having their own thermal imaging camera, and the Foreign Fire Insurance Board agreed and purchased 4 of them, 3 for the truck company senior firefighter spots, and then 1 for training, for the training division. They can go through, use it as they need to, and then also if you as a company officer would like to borrow one to train your crew, there's a 4th one that is available. The buttons and functions, there's not a whole lot on this camera that there is to do. Obviously, it has a thermal imaging camera, and then it also has a high-powered flashlight. You access the high-powered flashlight by the button right over here on the side. You can see that in the PowerPoint slide. On the front of it, which is down in the bottom left of the slide, are these 3 center buttons. The center button is the power, turns it on and off, and it also turns on and off the crosshairs and the temperature gauge. So when we look at some pictures here in a little bit, you'll see the temperature gauge down at the bottom. It does both of those. The far left button is what's going to change its color palettes. Really what it's doing is changing the temperature range in which it's operating. And so you have fire mode, you have a survey mode, and you have a color mode. We'll talk a little bit more about those in a second. And then it does have a photo capture. Now with the photo capture, you're not going to be able to plug this into a station computer and download photos that you took on a call, because all the computer is going to recognize it is as a mass storage device, a USB mass storage. And obviously we can't use USB drives on station computers. And so if you do end up taking a picture, which it doesn't hold a lot, I've found that mine holds between 5 and 10, depending on what temperature range and what other information I have on the screen at the time. But let your battalion chief know, let Division 1 know. If you're doing it with training, let training know, hey, I think I got a good picture, and let them move forward with taking it off of there per our policy that I think everybody has now gone through and read at the time that you'll be watching this video. So I talked about those different color palettes. So let's look at those. I know that one's in Celsius. I fixed all 4 of the cameras. They should all be reading in Fahrenheit scale now. But some of the benefits that I personally have found is that I can turn it on, fits in the pocket of my coat, and I only have to pull it out and use it when I want to. And it's not like the full-size thermal imaging camera where it's sitting in the way and bounces around, makes it difficult to climb ladders, that it's sitting safely tucked away into my pocket. It is nice that it gives a temperature readout when compared to some of the other thermal imaging cameras I looked at when presenting this to Foreign Fire. Not all of them had that. That flashlight, you'll play with that. That flashlight on the right-hand side is extremely powerful. And then maybe one of the most important things is that it holds a charge. I've had the camera on most of the morning. Believe it or not, I was messing with and getting some pictures and putting together this presentation, and I've only dropped 1 bar off of the camera that I have in my hand, and it's been on for about an hour to an hour and a half already. They can also hold a charge when they're not being used. I might go 3 or 4 shifts without even looking at the camera, pull it out, and it doesn't even require, it's still showing a full charge. So it would be something that I would check every morning, but don't expect that you're going to have to take it off and charge it nearly as much as the new iPhones. I think the iPhones will not hold a charge nearly as long as what this will, mainly because the iPhone's on all the time and this isn't. But to talk about some of those color palettes, you can see the Fire ones up right now, and the Fire goes to just over 1,000 degrees in the Fahrenheit scale, and that's going to be in the red and the magenta color scale. So if you see a red, dark purple, that's the higher end of that scale, whereas the black and white is the lower end of that scale. And so it gives you some of those contrasting differences in what the Fire is. When we go to the survey mode, the scale drops down. Now our grays and whites are only 150 degrees and our reds are 300. So now we can use it a little bit more to find hot spots. If we're out searching for victims out in a field, it changes that color display to now show red being a lower temperature, but still a little bit warm. And then when we have the color mode, granted the picture that I'm looking at is not the best, the color mode takes away all of the temperature readings and just says red and white are going to be our hottest colors, and that blue and that purple are going to be our coolest colors. So it allows it to change out and give you a little bit different colors just based on all the various different temperatures that you have. Now that we've talked about what some of the benefits of it are, there are definitely some weaknesses. So I want to make sure that everybody is aware of what some of those weaknesses are. The first is that it does have a small screen. You can see that it's not the world's largest screen, especially compared to the TICs that we have on the rigs right now that you're used to. Again, this is not the primary TIC. It's more of a backup, more of a secondary TIC for that senior firefighter. I have also found that it's difficult when I have a gloved hand to push the power button. So my recommendation would be, if you're responding to a call, to turn this on beforehand. Have it on. You can put it back into the pocket of your coat or wherever you're going to store it, but turn it on beforehand. The other thing, and you can see it on this picture right here, is that if you're in the fire mode and trying to look at something that's low temperature, it's going to be hard to differentiate. This is a firefighter standing around some fire hose with a tree behind them and a building, and it can be hard to see that when you're in fire mode and not operating at high temperatures. It can be just difficult to see what it is that you're looking at. The fix to that is knowing, oh, I'm in fire mode, I need to switch to survey or color, and that would make the picture a little bit better. But that is something that if you're not used to, you can run into. The biggest downfall of this camera is the relationship between the screen and the sensor. So the sensor is the red one, excuse me, the red one right here. It faces forward like all those screens and sensors do. However, unlike our Bullard TICs or some of the other ones, the screen and the sensor are in the same orientation. On this one, it's at a 90 degree. So if I want to look at the screen in a smoky area and I do this, all I'm seeing is up above me. And so if I want to see down in front of me, I have to look down and bend my neck. It's not so bad when you're crawling, but if you're walking or duck walking and your body's at 90 degrees to the floor, then that just makes it so you have to turn your head parallel to the floor to see the screen on this. Or if you move that up at an angle to see it, just know that it's pointing up. That's the biggest downfall that I have with this, is that orientation. And it just takes practice to get used to looking at it like this, or moving your head closer in a smoke-filled environment because the screen's a little bit smaller to go through. Another downfall is similar to all tics in that it lags if I move it around too fast, or if I have high temperature differences between, if I'm in fire mode and it's 1,000 degrees in this part of the room and it's maybe only 300-400 degrees in this part of the room. If I make that change quickly, the screen will lag out and I'll be having moved and still be reading what was back behind me as the little magic disc in there kind of resets itself. So here's a little bit better pictures of what that fire, the color mode, and the survey mode look like. Now I told you that hitting the center button real easily, just one quick little hit down in the center will, or depression I guess would be the technical term, will turn the temperature scale and gauge off. And so we look at that first fire picture, the firefighter that's down in there doing the search. We are in fire mode, and the heat coming down onto him is in the yellow scale. So it's probably 300, 400, 500 degrees that's pushing down on top of him. If you look now next to the color scale is in a room that had no fire in it. And the hottest part of the firefighter is the back of the head, down underneath the arm. The room is pretty cool comparatively speaking to the rest of their body. So yes, I have a temperature gun on that crosshair. The firefighter themselves is 72 degrees, but it's not based on any specific temperature scale. On the survey mode on the right, now we can see that this is looking down on the bucket of truck one. The water coming out is one temperature. The firefighters down inside of there are another temperature, but you can see down below the bucket, there's a little pocket of yellow and red. And so that's how that you can use this to find out where hidden fires or spot fires would be. Because if I was in fire mode still, all of that down there would be very similar in temperature, and I might not see that red pocket or that white area. It would all blend in because the scale is so much wider for it to look at. Some other additional things that we can do to look and use the SEEK are the same that you can use the thermal imaging camera that is on the rigs. We can use it to find which set of pipes for a sprinkler system are being used. In this picture, it was an outdoor building. It was cold, and so all around it is colder, and then the water moving through is warmer. That's how we found where that was leaking out. On the picture on the right of the screen, you can clearly see the liquid level and the vapor level on that anhydrous tank. You can see where those two are at. On the LP tank on the left, the reason why that I added this picture in is it gives a good example of even something that isn't reflective, like a television screen or a whiteboard or a window that you would think, oh, well, why would that have a reflection? Up at the top where the three lights are, you can see the reflection down below there of the three other lights. So it will still pick up reflections like most other thermal imaging cameras that you've seen. And then you can additionally see the liquid level and the vapor level kind of right through the center of the tank where that differentiation is between those two. I am sure that you will come up with many other uses for this, other things that we can have a thermal imaging camera that would go through and be useful for. Really, they're just an additional tool for, in my opinion, for the safety of the firefighter who might not have that thermal imaging camera. Yes, we can use it to help make our job easier while we're doing a search for a victim or searching for what pipe's leaking or if a heater core in an apartment building, where that might be located. But ultimately, the reason why I push to have these is for the safety of the firefighters who might not have a thermal imaging camera and might get separated from their company officer. If you're on an engine company and watching this, you might be saying, well, that's all well and good, but why do just the trucks get them? Well, we're starting out as I don't want to say just a test run, because they're going to stay on the truck companies, but we're starting with the truck companies to see, one, how much they're used, and two, if they are used, if they're a benefit for the truck companies, for the firefighters, and how well they work, not just in my experience, but department wide. So if you have any questions, if you have any recommendations, if you have something that you say, oh, you left this out and I can't stand that the camera does this, or you left this out and this is great, or this is a use that maybe we didn't think about before, please email those to me, because if we have a lot of positive feedback on them, then I will take it to the Foreign Fire Board and ask them to go ahead and add them all in for all of the engine companies, all of the truck companies. Also, if you see a member of the FFIB, thank them very much for purchasing the 4 that we have right now. They're the reason why we have them. I know there was a little bit of concern that we're adding a lot of equipment, we're adding new things. You have to sit here and listen to me talk for almost 20 minutes about a thermal imaging camera. It's more training, it's more responsibility on the company officers and on the crews. But I think that they're going to be a big benefit. I think they're a benefit for the safety of our members. And if you agree, not only email me, my email's up there. Don't only email me, but email the FFIB, so that when I go back to them after a month or after 3 months, depending on the feedback that I get, that they've heard from you as the membership as well, because it is an expense. It is something that they're investing in. And so let them know that they're great, or if they're not great, if you don't think that you'll use them, tell us that as well, because it's important that we have a good idea of what's going to be, what the benefit's going to be and how much they're going to be used. So I thank you very much for your time today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe. And please, if you like it, let us know. And if you don't, that's fine too. One thing that I might have left out is charging. Go back and hit that real quick, because it's really nice that it's a magnetic charger. And because of science, I can't put the charger on the wrong direction. I have to, now it's on, now it's off. There's only one way. I can't rip it out. It used to have a micro USB charger on the earlier editions, and they found out that that wasn't fireproof enough. And so charging, magnetic charger, and then it can plug into the same block that the iPhones for the rigs will plug into to charge. So wherever that's at, you can use both of them to charge. They will all have a nice lanyard that it comes with, so that you can put it in a pocket, move it around. I think the lanyard says not for climbing use. But again, thank you for your time. Have a wonderful day. Happy holidays, and be safe.